Hello, this is Frank Lewis, and welcome to another program based upon Relationships Revealed. I have been doing a whole series on marriage, and as you know, I had a lot of things that I've shared with you. You may never have even heard before. But first, before we get started, I want to remind you and tell you about this book. This book is a book that I wrote. It's The Key. It is full of revelation knowledge that God gave me directly from my own life and my own marriage. And then as I was a pastor at a church for 12 years, we learned specifically what the key was and how to perfect it to help people get emotionally healed. You can get that on Amazon. It is the basis of what we're talking about. And the second thing you can do is, if you want, you can go to relationshipsrevealed.org, and that's my website. It's a one-page website, maybe a little bit more, and it will help you. You can get the book at the bottom, and it'll help you to know what it is that Relationships Revealed is about, and about the 7 books that I'm writing on different relationships. So that will help you, and I'm excited to be with you today and talk about a new application. We're not talking about the problems anymore, we're talking about the root of the problems. But before we do that, let me just review quickly what we did last week, and that was we talked about lack of attachment. Remember that bonding comes from meeting baby's needs as quickly as possible. If that's done, then there's trust built. If that's not done, then there's lack of trust, and there is then no attachment. An infant grows up, becomes a child, and they're supposed to have an attachment with mom and dad. And attachment is a very important thing. We are wired by God, created by God to need attachment. And so if we don't get it, we're going to be in constant pain. It'll be very subliminal, be under our conscious thought, but we'll always never feel like we belong, like we have a place to belong. We'll never feel settled. And that will be difficult for everyone that gets into that position. Most people are in it, by the way, and that's why we're going to be talking about the resolution for lack of attachment. But we talked about 3 attachment styles. And the reason they're styles is because mom and dad were supposed to attach to us, but if they didn't, what ends up happening is we end up in a situation where we didn't get what we needed, and that is attachment. Now, if we didn't get what we needed, we had 3 styles. We had the dismissive, that's basically the shut down person, the distracted, that's the amped up person, and the disorganized, and that is the one that is afraid of attaching at all. I told you last time that I was disorganized, and it would cause me lots of problems. According to attachment styles, we will actually do work. Choose work according to attachment styles. We'll also marry according to attachment styles, among other reasons. But attachment styles are very, very important to understand. Opposites do attract, but it's not because of health. It's because they are not healthy. One half, half a person and a half a person doesn't complete. It makes a quarter. So it's not out of health the opposites attract. It's actually out of woundedness and out of dysfunction. Now today we're going to talk about how Satan uses pain, because Satan uses pain very skillfully. It is the root cause of all the problems we have in marriage and all relationships, because Satan uses pain very skillfully to put us in a position where we are afraid of more pain, just like Adam and Eve, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, because we really need to go back to the garden and really look at what happened. And so I'm going to read here out of King James, New King James. Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field whom the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, let me get this a bit of light here. Has God said, You cannot eat of every tree. Has God not said, you shall eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but not the one in the middle. That's just a paraphrase. So Satan then said that you're not going to surely die, because she said she was going to, that they would die if they touched the tree. And God knows in that day that you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Now, it's a very, very important part, because what happened is that you will be like God. Now, see, the whole plan of Satan is to get people, God's creation. We were created in the image of God. Satan hates us, and he wants to kill, steal, and destroy. And so that's what the word says. So what he's after causing us amazing amounts of problems because of pain. See, he wants us to be not the people that God created us to be. And if we're not the people God created us to be, we can't do what God created us to do. And that's what he's after. See, Eve, he told Eve, you can be like God. You can be more than who God made you. And that's a problem, because she didn't become more like God, neither did Adam. They became less than who God created them to be. And that's always what happens when Satan uses pain. People become less than who they were created to be. And that is very, very important for you to understand, because in this whole plan of Satan, he uses pain to cause babies, infants, and toddlers and small children to be less than who they were created to be, because he can control them then. And you're going to find that out as we go along. Now, why does he attack? Even in utero, while the baby's in the womb, it can happen. So what happens is he attacks babies, infants, and small children, because he knows that they're dependent upon mom and dad. So if mom and dad bring pain to them, then what's going to happen? They're not going to be able to trust him. He also knows that they're not only dependent, but they are in a position where they can't reason. They can't reason until they get older. And so he's got them in a place where they're very, very vulnerable, and he takes advantage of that. And he takes advantage of that quite effectively as the problem. And it's really too bad, because he gets so much done, and he's so good at what he does that he causes us problems for the rest of our lives. Now, what we're going to really look at today is to look at different things that happen to us because of pain. See, Satan uses pain administered by mom and dad, and if he can get the father to do it to the children, then he's accomplished a big thing, which is that they will not be able to trust their father or authority. That was the situation in my case. They were not able to trust. I was not able to trust my father because of how he treated me, and so I couldn't trust any authority, and I certainly couldn't trust God. That's probably your situation, if I would make an educated guess, because that's what Satan does. He does it to all human beings, not just Christians. He doesn't know who's going to become a Christian, so he does it to all human beings. And what he's trying to do is to get us to be something we're not, get us to be a person that we're not, and he's very, very good at it. Well, first of all, we're going to look at how pain affects our bodies. Pain is very, very dangerous to our bodies, because what pain does is it puts us in a place of heightened awareness or hypersensitivity to having more pain. Nobody likes pain. You don't like pain. I don't like pain. We're all pain avoiders because we weren't created by God for pain. So what happens is we don't handle it well. And Satan knows that. So what he does is he brings the pain through mom and dad, or through other caregivers or through other situations. And what happens is we are then hypersensitive to more pain. If we're hypersensitive to more pain, then what's going to happen is we are going to actually be in a heightened state of alert, and we're going to have chemicals that were designed to keep us from being hurt, that are going to be like adrenaline and cortisol, that are going to be in our bodies. And what's going to happen is it's going to create undue amounts of stress. Now, research has shown, medical research has shown that if we have too much stress, we're going to have all kinds of physical problems. We're going to have heart problems. We're going to have high blood pressure problems. We're going to have cancer problems. We're going to have all kinds of sickness and disease. And the reason it happens is because the actual pain, the emotions that come from pain, are trapped in our physical body. And unless we resolve those emotions, unless we heal those emotions, which I'm going to talk about in the weeks to come, we're going to have pain causing physical problems in our bodies for the rest of our lives. And eventually the body's just going to give out. That's what happened to my wife. She couldn't trust God, she couldn't trust me, and she couldn't trust any men. And so she ended up with clogged arteries because of high blood pressure. And what happened is she ended up having a heart attack and went home to be with the Lord. So that's not what I want for you, and that's not what you want. And so we've got to have a way to resolve these pain. Now, one of the other things that happens is that pain administered by father and mother cause a child, a growing child, an infant, a toddler, or small child, as they're growing up, causes them to have an improper or arrested development. They won't develop properly. They won't get their emotional tasks and requirements done, and they won't develop and have their needs met properly because they're going to be afraid because the pain came. And so what ends up happening is that a child will not develop properly. Think of the people you know in your life that are actually people that if something goes wrong, they throw an emotional fit. They're infants. They're stuck at the infant level of emotional maturity. I remember I talked about that a couple of weeks ago. And that's what happens. Pain is keeping that person stuck, or they're hindering their development, or they're stopping it altogether. And that keeps them stuck at the emotional level of an infant. Think about a person like my wife and other people that I come in contact with all the time that are givers. They just love to give. They love to give, but they're stuck at the child level. What's the child level? Remember back 2 weeks ago? What's the child level? Supposed to be able to take care of themselves. Well, they can't take care of themselves if they never learned how to do that. And their parents couldn't be trusted, so they never got to do that. Well, that's a big problem in our world. And it causes the people that get stuck in it, they get stuck in a bad way. So that's one of the things that we don't want to have is arrested development, because we're going to have to go back to the infant level, get those infant needs met. We're going to have to go back to the child level, get those child level needs met before we can go on and be more the people that God created us to be. Remember, that's what Satan's whole goal is to keep us from being the people that God created us to be. The next thing I want to talk about is if father or mother causes a child pain, that child cannot trust their father or their mother, okay? That's not the way God set it up. Fathers and mothers are supposed to be representatives of God. They're supposed to help their children to learn how to trust. Well, if they can't trust father or mother because they bring them pain, what ends up happening is they can't trust God. And that's what the devil wants. He wants people, children, to grow up to be adults that can't trust God. But the other problem is, who do they trust? If they can't trust father or mother, they can't trust authority, who do they trust? They trust themselves. And if you trust yourself, that's going to put you in fear of not being able to do all the things, because life throws you too many curves, too many problems. But also, what it does is we don't want more pain. You don't want more pain. I don't want more pain. Nobody wants more pain. So what do? We need to be in control. I need to protect myself. My parents didn't protect me. Other people didn't protect me. So I got to protect myself. I've talked to so many people that said, nobody protected me, so I protected myself. Now, if you protect yourself, what happens is you're in control of your life. At least you think you are. It's an illusion, by the way. But God's not in control. And Jesus said, I'm the vine and you're the branches. If you are not attached to me, if I'm not in control of your life, then you're not going to bear any good fruit. Well, not only that, you're going to live in fear. Fear attracts Satan like faith attracts God. So what's going to happen is that fear of loss of control is going to give the devil a legal right to cause your life to be miserable, a legal right to attack you, a legal right to cause more pain. See, when you fear loss of control, it just puts Satan in a position where he can bring more and more pain. And eventually, you go to sex, drugs, alcohol, and working too hard, and all the stuff that wreck your body, wreck your relationships. That's what Satan's after. And so, have to get to a point where we can learn to trust God, because we've gotten things resolved. We've gotten that pain resolved. It's so vitally important to get the pain resolved. And the other thing that happens is pain causes us to believe things about ourselves that aren't true. To believe things about ourselves that aren't true. What do I mean by that? Well, father or mother cause us pain, or a caregiver causes pain. By the way, Satan takes painful situations that come at a very young age. In my case, it was 2 years of age, and then he reinforces it over and over and over again until, in my situation, at 12 years of age, I was not only afraid to lose control, I had no value, no worth, no importance. I mean, I felt I was defective and I hated myself. Well, that's not who God created me to be. So the problem is that Satan has a plan to make me less than who God made me. Now, see, is it true? Is it true that I'm not valuable, not important, and unworthy? Well, the Bible says, no, that I was fearfully and wonderfully made. But if I don't believe that, and I don't until I get the emotional healing that I need, if I believe that I'm not valuable, important, and worthless, defective, then what's going to happen is that belief will always override my experience, what's coming through my 5 physical senses. In other words, my experiences. And the explanation of those experiences, which I talked about weeks ago, will cause me to believe that what I believe is true will cause me to have a belief that when I believe is true is it will override everything that comes in through my 5 physical senses. Well, the Bible comes in when I'm reading it. It comes in through my 5 physical senses. It will be overridden by my false beliefs. Remember, the left side of the brain always comes up with explanations and judgments and interpretations. Well, those judgments and interpretations are always, first of all, they're below conscious thought. Second of all, they're more powerful than what I get through my 5 physical senses. So I tried to believe God. I wanted to believe God, that I could trust him, but I couldn't willpower it because it's below conscious thought. See, what I believe is below conscious thought. So my truth was actually that I was not fearfully and wonderfully made. My truth, because of my experience, was that I was not valuable, not important, and not worthy. That's probably your truth. You probably believe those same things or something like that. And so you're wondering, why? Why can't I trust God? Why can't I live this Christian life? Why is life so hard? It's because of what we believe. See, what we believe dictates everything that we do. And so that's why Satan wants to mess up what we believe. So what happens then is I have to have, according to brain science, I have to have, and I've studied brain science now for 20 years, so I have a pretty good understanding of what needs to happen and what needs to be done. We're going to talk about that in the weeks ahead. But according to brain science, I must have new, truthful experiences to override and to blot out the false experiences that I had before. And so that's vitally important. What continues to happen is that I'm going to be in pain if I didn't attach properly. Remember I talked about attachment last week, last week I talked about attachment, and I said we were designed by God to need attachment. Attachment is where we make an emotional connection. We can't make an emotional connection if we are not able to trust mom and dad. We just can't do it. Or any authority, or God. We can't make an emotional connection. What's going to happen when we don't make an emotional connection? We're going to live in pain. God wired us, and that's why the dismissive lives in pain. The disorganized for sure lives in pain, and the distracted lives in pain. All those attachment styles they live in pain because they were not attached properly. If you're not attached properly, then you're going to have pain. It's called attachment pain. And what's going to happen is you're going to look to solve that attachment pain by a bottle, of alcohol. You're going to look to solve it with all these different painkillers, drugs, sex, too much chocolate, too much food, too much work, all these different things. You may try to solve it with adrenaline rushes, so you do dangerous things. I don't know what you're trying to solve it with, but I do know you're trying to solve it because attachment pain is something that Satan wants us to live in, because then we'll do things that will hurt ourselves. We'll do things that will cause us to not live a long, productive life and probably not fulfill our call the way God created us to fill it. So we have all these different things that Satan has done in order to be able to get us into a position where he can control us, or at least bring more pain to us. He may not be able to control you because you may know enough word that you can fight him off. But see, the problem is your relationships aren't going to work well. Your marriage is not going to work well when you have pain that's unresolved. I said that from the beginning. I'm saying it now. I'm reinforcing it. I'm telling you how Satan uses pain. And he uses it in a way to be able to cause all your relationships to be painful, cause your marriage to have ups and downs and emotional breakdowns and emotional problems, causes you not to have joy, satisfaction in your relationships, and particularly in your marriage. It's always hard. You're working so hard in everything. And that's not the way God designed us. That's not the way God created us. He didn't create us to work hard. Jesus said, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. Well, he said he came to give us life, and life more abundantly. I don't know too many Christians that are living the abundant life. And the reason is because of pain. And if you have pain, and you do, in these areas, then you're going to need to get to a place where you can resolve that pain and start to live. See, that's what's happened to me. Because I have learned and God has revealed to me how to be able to solve and to heal emotional pain, I don't have the pain. I don't live in the pain I used to live in. I trust God now so much that I make very good decisions and I don't get in pain. And the reason why is because I've resolved a lot of the emotional pain that came to me in my childhood. And you can do the same thing. I'm going to show you how to do that. One of the things that we're going to look at in the future here is, how does pain actually set us up? Actually, we're going to look at that right next week. What am I thinking? We're going to look at that next week. How does pain is the root problem and the cause of fear and shame? Remember, it said in Genesis, he said, I was naked, I was afraid, and I hid. You ever wondered what that was all about? Well, I'm going to talk to you about that next week when we talk about fear and shame. But I want you to know that God loves you. He's got a great plan for your life, and this plan will work in your marriage. He's got a great marriage for you. It's a marriage made in heaven that you can experience here on earth, and all your relationships can be better when you resolve emotional pain. And I'm going to talk to you about that in the weeks ahead, how to resolve emotional pain. But know this, and have the hope that it can be done. I'm living proof it can be done, and I'm going to help you to become more the person you were created to be so you can do what God created you to do. He is good. He's good all the time. You're going to be able to find that out. You're going to be able to trust Him. You're going to have a better life. You're going to have a great marriage, and you are going to live the abundant life that Jesus promised, spirit, soul, body, relationally, and financially. And it's going to be the best you've ever had. And I declare that in Jesus' name.